Story 1. Years ago, I experienced a medical emergency that changed my life and revealed my husband's true character. At the time, we had only been dating for a few months. Suddenly, I was struck by excruciating pain and ended up at my obstetrician-gynecologist's office, where I was told I needed emergency surgery for ovarian torsion. It was terrifying. I was nauseous, my hair was a mess, and honestly, the last thing I wanted was for anyone, especially this new man in my life, to see me like that. I remember telling him I would call later and promised to keep him updated. But I was so overwhelmed I rushed off the phone to handle the urgent care visit alone. But love has a way of showing up, even when you think you want to hide. As I was leaving the doctor's office to head to the emergency room, still reeling from the shock and pain, I stepped outside and there he was. He was just sitting there on the curb, waiting. I was so surprised to see him that, for a moment, I forgot how much pain I was in. He refused to leave my side. He took me to the emergency room, waited with me through everything, and stayed at the hospital after my surgery, making sure I was never alone. He saw me at my absolute worst, long before he ever saw me at my best. That is the moment I knew I was head over heels. If he could love me through the hardest parts, I knew he was the real thing. Story 2. One time, I told my partner how much I loved matcha and that I would buy it every day if I could. At that time, I was just talking about random things, so I never really gave it much thought. After a few days, he learned how to make matcha for me and even bought the right equipment and high-grade matcha. I found out later how much matcha he bought and tested to see which ones were high-grade. He does not have any background as a barista. He is a gamer and content creator with little knowledge about cooking, so it was definitely a challenge for him. I cannot count how many matcha samples we taste tested, but it was delightful. Story 3. I got sick with the influenza once, and she never left my side. I was out of it for most of the time, and she was there the entire time. We were not even living together at the time. My mother told me a week after I recovered, "You need to keep that one." Story 4. Before we even started dating, he stayed on a 5-hour phone call while I sobbed over a friend who had passed away. Story 5. This was when we began dating, but I used to get grounded a lot. He would come over and play video games with my dad. I would come out and sit next to him while my dad tried to beat him. Pops eventually just started grounding me so he would get his gaming buddy. Story 6. High-pressure job, very demanding, very competitive. After working 70 to 90-hour weeks for over a year, I wasn't sure I was cut out for it. With a mortgage, bills, a newborn, and all the pressure that comes with it, I was near breaking point. I was sitting in the dark reflecting on it all when she came in, tired from the midnight feedings, and asked me to talk to her about it. I did. I laid it all out. My fears, my anxiety, all of it. She said, "Hey, it's okay. If you get what you want, you'll deserve it. If you don't, we'll make do. Either way, I'll be here with you every step of the way. Show them who you are." Just knowing that she wanted to be there by my side, rise or fall, made all the difference. Story 7. I was complaining that I couldn't find any large cans of tuna, only small cans of about 150 grams each. Then, about a week later, he texted me while I was away from my phone, so I only saw it after. He said he went to the supermarket, saw a large can of tuna about 450 grams, and asked if I wanted it. When I didn't reply, he said, "It's okay." I grabbed it anyway. Now, every time he sees tuna on sale, he tells me. Maybe he has associated tuna with me. Story 8. We are not at the love stage yet, but when he calls me while he is running errands after work, it means the world to me because I know he is thinking about me and probably has been off and on all day, just like I have been thinking about him too. Story 9. He always takes my warmie, a stuffy filled with herbs that you warm up to help with sleep, downstairs to microwave it at night so that I do not have to. That is just one of many small things he does to make my life easier and better. Story 10. About 1 year into dating, both of us were in graduate school and broke. I did not pass my qualifying exam, meaning I spent 1 year in graduate school and was told I would not continue. Suddenly, I faced a lot of uncertainty. Should I apply to graduate school somewhere else? Should I find a job? Since I technically would no longer be a student, I needed to start paying for my undergraduate loan. He had saved up $20,000 and offered to pay my loan. I knew this man would stand by his words when he said, "As long as I am here, everything will be fine." Story 11. He drove across town to surprise me with chicken wings and then drove back to the opposite side of town to where I live. It was basically a 2+ hour drive and train ride just to get me chicken wings when I was in a bad mood. Also, for our first Valentine's Day together, he made me a bouquet of chicken nuggets and sausages. We have been married for 3 years now, and today marks 9 years of being together. Story 12. He has bought me flowers and my food cravings whenever I am on my period. He knows the first 2 days are the worst for me, emotionally and physically. He has also told me he has purchased tampons or pads to keep at his place. I cannot wait to live together and marry him. Story 13. So many things. He stepped between me and my abusive mother when she was tearing into me. He was in a strange country in her house and had barely met her. I was so in awe that I had someone on my side for the first time. He realized I was overwhelmed, so he took on the mental load of running the household. I am humbled and grateful. I work longer hours and I still do most of the cooking, but laundry, bills paid, groceries, and what's about to expire that we need to use up, the man has it covered. He will make dinner anytime I ask. Story 14. A couple of months into dating, I became very depressed. I stopped sleeping, had uncontrollable crying fits over small inconveniences, broke down in front of his family, and even when the insomnia faded, I would wake up and within an hour be falling asleep standing up. I could barely make it through an evening. I would forget everything. To this day, I can hardly remember most of that period. I looked haggard. It was the worst my depression has ever been. He barely knew me at this point, but stuck by me regardless. He told me he loved me for the first time in the middle of it all. It must have been horrible to witness, but he stayed by my side even though some days I was barely conscious. It will be 12 years in October. Story 15. My wife makes small resin trinkets and hides them in the car for me to find during my morning commute to work. She is so quirky. Story 16. Our first date, as friends no less, they remembered an offhand comment I had made in a group of friends many months before. I had joked that no one wanted to be in a kitchen with me because I like to sing as I cook. On our first date, they went into their office, then came back out and asked me what I wanted to sing to, so they could engage the sound system and make me my own music station because I was there to make dinner for us. Story 17. I had been craving a good burger for months. Every time we went out to eat, I would order one and end up supremely disappointed with the quality, which somehow made my craving more intense. We went out to eat with family, and he asked if I was going to get the burger. I had never eaten at this place before. I was so defeated by those months of disappointment that I said no. I would order a basket of chicken tenders to play it safe. He decided to get the burger. When the food came out, his burger looked perfect. He saw my face and immediately suggested we switch meals because I would enjoy his burger more than anyone else could. He was so right. It was glorious. I was already deeply in love with him, but that moment made me absolutely sure he was the person for me. Story 18. Just putting up with me for all these years and complaining less than average. I could not put up with me. Story 19. About a year after living together, I decided to stop smoking. It was hard. One evening, he was in bed and I was still up when I got a call to tell me my father had tried to end his own life. I was shocked and crying, and just when I thought I would do anything for a smoke, my husband came out of the bedroom, fully clothed, grabbed his keys and told me, "Come on, let's get you cigarettes." It was one of many gestures in our 30 years together. He is a man of quiet, considerate attentions, but to this day I still think it is one of the most romantic gestures he has had. Story 20. I had surgery that wasn't life-threatening, but I ended up in the hospital for a week. Throughout my stay, she was right by my side, never complaining, even though I'm sure I grumbled about being there. That's when I realized how much she cares. She also treats my adult children as if they were her own, which is something she didn't have to do. She even spends time with them. They go shopping together, and they constantly tell me not to mess this up. So, to summarize, it's the little things all added up. Story 21. She has been with me through the hardest times of my life and the greatest, and I have never felt her love waver. We had times when we flourished, times when we were totally broke, even lived with my parents for a while. She always made me feel proud of me, encouraged me to do better, and supported my dreams. Story 22. He shares everything he eats with me, whether I am working, cooking, or just relaxing. If he is near me and eating something, he will not only share it but also come and literally feed me. It is very simple but makes me feel seen and loved. Story 23. When we met, we weren't ready to date due to our personal reasons. But we chose to be friends, friends who met up almost every day. I knew he loved me when he asked to hang out on Valentine's Day, and I pretended that I was going to be in the area anyway. Took him 2 hours to get there, while I waited about 4 hours pretending I was in the area with my friend. Meanwhile, I was sitting in Starbucks waiting for him. He was sick but didn't tell me and still came. When we met up, we both acted like it wasn't a big deal. But my heart melted when he took me to his favorite restaurant and insisted on paying. We ended up arguing about who was going to pay since it wasn't a date. I forced the waiter to take my card too, but only my now husband's card was charged. We were both so giddy and happy after that non-date that we both happened to be in the area for. That's when I knew he loved me. That was more than 11 years ago. Story 24. Carries me out of the kitchen and puts me down on the sofa. He does not let me back in until he has finished doing the dishes, so I do not end up doing too much housework. Story 25. We have only been dating a few months and I have been diagnosed with cancer. I gave him the opportunity to leave as it was going to be a difficult journey. He not only chose to stay but came to visit me in the hospital. I looked unwell and was in and out of consciousness. He is still here and we are stronger than before. Story 26. When my now husband and I were first dating, I was working as a photographer doing school portraits, graduations, proms, sports, and similar events. One particularly cold, wet day, I had to do some little league shoots at a few different locations. The weather was miserable, but I was getting paid, so I couldn't complain. He chose to tag along and chat with some of the other crew members while he waited for me to finish. I think that was when I was really sure I loved him, and I had an inkling that maybe he loved me. Story 27. He crossed the Atlantic just to see twice, and one of the 2 times I got a fever so bad I was kind of begging to be knocked out. Because of this, he offered to take care of me. He showered me and treated me with so much care I really wanted to cry. He is now my fiancé. Story 28. This was literally the other day. We were at a festival in the crowd, ready to watch a band that he said he was excited for. However, before they came on, I got overstimulated and experienced sensory overload. I was minutes away from having a meltdown and said to him that I didn't mind leaving and that he could stay to watch the band. I emphasized that I really didn't mind because I knew he was excited. He just looked at me and said, "Your comfort and safety are my priority. We can go back. It's okay. I love this man." I felt bad, but he was just so sweet. Story 29. Hubs came in from grocery shopping a couple of weeks ago. He got through the front door, dropped the bags at his feet, and announced loudly, "I've discovered I'm miserable when I go shopping without you." It was incredibly sweet and made me giggle. I make sure to go shopping with him whenever I can. Story 30. There are too many to count. Some of them are from before we were even a couple, and I didn't see what it was about, but my family did and knew all along. I'll list my absolute favorite ones that made me fall more in love with him. During both of my pregnancies, he would come home from work and we'd catch up. He would sit me down in my favorite cozy chair and talk or read to my belly. One time, I had a huge case of pregnancy cravings. He drove right away, even though he had just gotten off work, and I could have gotten it myself. He has always shown me that I come first and always makes sure that I'm taken care of. I know, hands down, my husband is the best man. Story 31. While I was at work, she organized to drop dinner at my place for no other reason than that she loves me. Story 32. After we got together and moved to a new city, my chronic illnesses flared up, and I spent the last 3 years being very sick on and off, to the point of needing to be carried to the toilet and back. The moment I realized, my husband alleviated my intense fear of having to depend on someone for basic tasks. My fear of getting old, basically, was the moment I realized how much he loves and cherishes me, so much so that his behavior healed such a deep-seated fear. He loves me unconditionally, and as long as I am loyal to him, he will keep loving me. It turns out being loved unconditionally can heal a lot of past trauma. Story 33. We were 18 years old, and he went and bought me tampons. He also came back with chocolate and a magazine. We have been together for 18 years. Story 34. Je suis avec mon copain depuis 2 ans. J'ai toujours eu de gros problèmes avec ma famille et je souffre de plusieurs pathologies mentales qui rendent mon quotidien très compliqué. Il ne m'a jamais jugé ni pressé, il me soutient chaque jour avec une grande patience. Il s'assure toujours que je mange et que je dorme. Il y a maintenant presque 1 an, je suis tombé très malade. J'ai de la fièvre quotidiennement, de grosses douleurs articulaires et pulmonaires, et j'ai même eu un calcul rénal il y a quelques semaines. La douleur m'empêche souvent de dormir. Je suis épuisé, je ne peux plus travailler ni faire d'efforts physiques. Il est toujours là. Il m'accompagne dès qu'il peut à mes rendez-vous médicaux, il m'aide financièrement, passe beaucoup de temps à me rassurer et à me remonter le moral. Il est tellement patient. Quand il voit que je suis triste ou anxieuse, il trouve toujours un moyen de me rendre heureuse. Moi qui n'avais jamais eu de famille ou de vrai soutien avant, j'ai mis du temps avant de m'ouvrir. Mais nous voilà presque 3 ans plus tard, on va bientôt emménager ensemble. Il m'a montré que j'avais tort de croire que l'amour n'existait que dans les livres et que personne ne pouvait vraiment me supporter. Je l'aime. Je veux vraiment me sortir de tout ça pour que notre avenir soit radieux et qu'il n'ait plus à s'inquiéter au quotidien. Story 35. Told my then date, now wife, that I was homeless but had these crazy business ideas no one believed would succeed. She became homeless with me, abandoning all the luxuries her family gave her. Not once has she said she hates it, even now. Story 36. I'm not sure if you can consider it a small thing, but she got me to quit smoking. In her words, I just want you around for a long time. It wasn't really that hard after that. I just threw away my tobacco and vapes right then and there and never bought another one. 15 years of smoking ended right there. We are getting married once it cools down a bit. We both agreed that Florida summer isn't the time for a wedding. Story 37. I think the moment I hoped, I'll marry her someday, was when we were teenagers, and I showed her a video of Philharmonic musicians playing the theme from one of my favorite video games. There were a lot of flute parts in it, and my fiancée had been learning the flute since early childhood. I asked out of curiosity if she could play that too. She said maybe she could with the sheet music. I didn't think much of it and had already forgotten about it. Less than 10 days later, she played the entire theme for me. She found the sheet music and practiced the piece for a week, just because I mentioned how beautiful I thought the song was. At that moment, I realized I'll never let that girl go. We were 18 and 16 then. Now we're 25 and 23. We are getting married this year. Story 38. I had a medical issue that resembled a stroke. My wife jumped in her car and was racing to help me. She accidentally called me and I could hear her, but she didn't know. I heard her absolutely screaming at traffic to get out of her way to reach me. She is usually quiet and composed. That's when I heard love, real love. She is the greatest wife a man could have. Story 39. My husband and I always shower together, and we have a bad habit of forgetting to get towels. He volunteers to go out into the cold air and get the towels for us every time. One time we were arguing, so I stormed off to shower alone. I was the one in the wrong in the argument. I threw a temper tantrum and acted like a spoiled brat. He was angry, stormed into the bathroom while I was showering to get something he needed, noticed I didn't have a towel, and silently grabbed a towel from the room and hung it on the hook in the bathroom for me to use after I was done showering. That is just a small but meaningful way he has shown he genuinely loves me. It happened early in our marriage, and it stuck with me and humbled me because I remember thinking if the roles had been reversed, I would have been petty enough to make him get out in the cold to get his own towel. I would not have done anything for him while he was treating me poorly. That single act taught me so much about marriage, commitment, love, and loyalty, and gave me confidence that I could count on him, even in low moments. I started striving to show up for him in the same way. Story 40. I have pretty bad eczema, so my body is full of scars. I am insecure about it, but he never calls it ugly or shows disgust. Sometimes my foot flares up and looks really bad, but even when I say I hate it, he never calls it ugly. He always offers to help me put cream on the itchy spots without being grossed out. Story 41. When I received some bad news about my family, I started to cry. She did not roll her eyes, mock me, get frustrated, or complain about it to her friends. She cried with me as she held me in her arms. Story 42. So many wonderful things have happened in the past few years, but a recent example is when I went back to work after maternity leave. I work at the same company, and all of my team members are located in different states. He set up my desk with IT equipment ready for me on my first day and left flowers, chocolates, and a thoughtful note to make me feel welcome. I am beyond grateful for this man. Story 43. Last week, I had a migraine and could not join a game night with my boyfriend and a couple of his friends. Instead of going there without me, my boyfriend came over so I could sleep on his arm while the medication did its job. Story 44. We were dating for about 9 months when my cousin was tragically killed in a car accident. My parents were away on vacation, and I was on my way home from work when I received the call. I could barely get the words out when I called him and told him what happened. By the time I got home, he was waiting for me in my driveway and stayed by my side during this difficult time. 15 years later, we have been through the good and the bad together. Story 45. Back in school, in a typical party boy manner, I was very drunk with friends. She brought me home and cleaned me up. Embarrassing, but she is the one. That is the last time I ever drink myself to death. Story 46. Came all the way from his university in the city to comfort me when an assignment did not go my way and I was having bad thoughts. We just sat together while I cried, and he held me through it all. Babe, if you are lurking around here, love you always. Story 47. She always had my favorite drink in her fridge. It was a small gesture, but in my opinion, very thoughtful. We are getting married in a month. Story 48. I once mentioned my favorite sweets were jelly tots, and the purple and red flavors are the best. My boyfriend bought me a pack, and when I opened it, it was filled only with purple and red. I couldn't believe it as they don't make packs like this. He explained he had cut it at the bottom, bought multiple packs, sorted through them, put all the purple and red into my bag, and sealed it back up at the bottom so it didn't look like it had been opened. He wanted me to be surprised when I opened it. He brags about me and shows me off. He regularly tells me that his coworkers were saying how pretty his girlfriend is and how lucky he is. I'll never forget meeting some of his coworkers, men and women, all saying the same things. Heard all about you. Feel like I know you already. And he talks about you all the time. He sets his alarm in the morning just to turn it off and stay in bed for a few minutes. He works long, hard days of up to 12 or more hours. When I asked why he doesn't set the alarm for a little later, he explained he takes those few minutes to hold and cuddle me before getting ready for work, and that it sets him up for the day. He works so hard and can be exhausted, but wakes up earlier just to be with me. We don't have any children as we're still a little young. We have been together for 6 years, and every single Mother's Day he buys me a card and a gift addressed to the best future mother, or to the future mother of my children. I could go on and on. Story 49. We had been dating for about a year, and he told me he wanted to really show me a good evening, just pleasure after pleasure. We were up pretty late, drinking and smoking cannabis, and he did all sorts of fun things to my body while I just laid back and enjoyed it. It was a delight. When it was all over, I assumed it was going to be his turn. At the very least, he was going to want to have vaginal intercourse so he could climax. But I was exhausted and overstimulated and really just wanted to go to sleep. I told him I loved him, had a wonderful evening, but wanted to go to bed and was sorry. I didn't want to have any more sex. Instead of getting mad, saying I was being unfair or selfish, pouting, or whatever my ex-husband would have done, he just said, "Okay, I'm glad you had a good night. I love you," and then held me while I cried. I felt safe, seen, loved, and understood. Story 50. My husband and I just went to France. He surprised me with an upgrade to business class since we would be flying for almost 12 hours, and he wanted us to be comfortable the whole way. Story 51. I've only had 2 people who have loved me. Unfortunately, neither relationship worked out, but they both did small things that were incredibly meaningful. The first person probably stands out the most. He didn't have a car or much money, college student, but within the first month of dating, he got up from bed, walked all the way to Starbucks and back, a mile each way, and got me the first pumpkin spice latte of the season to wake me up before my 9 a.m. class. He came back sweaty but was the cutest he had ever been to me. The second person was a coworker and friend before we were together. I told him I was really nervous about a doctor's appointment, and he offered to come with me on the spot. I declined, so instead he texted me the entire time I was in the waiting room with encouragement and checked up on me when I got back. It was literally just a simple blood draw, but he took my anxiety seriously and was incredibly supportive before we were even a couple. He also later offered to keep me company during hair appointments since I was complaining about boredom and forced small talk. He's probably glad it never happened because I think he underestimated how long they take and how awkward that would be. Story 52. Absolutely hates long written content yet admitted it using a large number of words. Story 53. I had severe cramps on the first day of my menstrual period, so I took some painkillers and fell asleep on the sofa while watching Hell's Kitchen. When I woke up, my boyfriend had made my favorite dinner and had a plate set up for me with no questions asked. Story 54. I had a small procedure done at my obstetrician-gynecologist office. He was supportive throughout the entire process and held my hand during my procedure. I knew he was nervous for me, but he made me feel safe, comfortable, and cared for. Once the procedure was completed, we were laughing together at the artwork hanging in the room. That is love. Story 55. Back when I was still in the Philippines, juggling all the paperwork and preparing for the big move to Seattle with him was a lot. He knew that even though I was incredibly excited, leaving my family, we are very close, was tough. Whenever I felt anxious, he was always there, not just listening and comforting me with words, but also actively helping me navigate all the details of the documents. Even now that we are living together, he still joins my video calls with my family, reassuring them I am doing well and that he will take care of me. Story 56. I came down with my very first kidney stone, a massive 1.1 centimeter stone that left me in the hospital overnight. I told my then girlfriend not to worry, to go home and get some sleep in a real bed. I would be all right. She showed up the next morning as soon as they allowed her to see me, despite it being a workday, and sat all day in that uncomfortable chair in my room with her work laptop so I would not be alone in the hospital. I knew that day I wanted her to be my wife. Story 57. My better half and I were good friends before we decided to start dating. Most people thought we were already dating because we were always together. On our first month anniversary of actually dating, we planned for him to come over to my house to cook dinner and watch a movie together. I called him in a panic as he was heading over to Disregard because I was busy with a colicky horse, and my partner was seriously terrified of animals. He had been bitten by a horse as a toddler and really did not like being too close to horses ever since. 30 minutes later, he showed up, armed with flowers he bought for me and takeout. My boyfriend, who was afraid of horses, spent 4 hours walking my horse around the front pasture in the drizzle and darkness because it was late evening when we had made plans, while keeping me calm the whole time. We even ate pizza as we walked to make sure I ate and did not just tell him I did to quiet his worry. My horse is fine, still sassy and demanding the mince he buys her because she is spoiled rotten. We have been happily married best friends for years. Story 58. I have Raynaud's, and he would turn on my heated seats and steering wheel 10 minutes before I left for work each morning while I was getting ready. Something I never asked him to do. He would also get my towel ready and wrap me in it when I got out of the shower each day. These gestures mean more than words. Story 59. I am so lucky to say I have endless stories like these. He is such a gentleman and is very patient with me. Story 60. Planted 2 plumeria in my backyard, so I would have something pretty to look at outside my kitchen window. I was all in after that. Story 61. Not my partner. I'm currently single, but my best friend. I've always had horrible mental health and multiple disorders. This event was caused by my borderline personality disorder, and one day I was splitting and decided to end it. About a year ago, when I did this another time, My best friend downloaded Life 360 on my phone in case this happened again. So the night it was happening, I was overdosing on some medicine, and my best friend had texted me. I hadn't responded for a while, considering I usually respond pretty fast. She drove to where I was, which was quite literally in the middle of the forest, and found me passed out by a tree. She took me to the hospital and saved my life. The doctor said if she had been there any later, I would have died. I love her so much, and she is my favorite person in the whole world. Story 62. I had to have a section of skin surgically removed from my back. It was in a spot that, while not easy or very comfortable, I could reach and manage cleaning and applying fresh bandages myself. My partner does not have a strong stomach for stitched wounds or seeing loved ones in pain. For example, my painful period cramps can make him feel faint. However, he insisted on helping me clean and rebandage my surgical wound. Even though it made him nauseous and on the verge of fainting, he insisted so I would not have to struggle doing it myself. Story 63. In the middle of the night, if I am hungry, he will go get whatever, whenever, wherever. Show me a person who will do that without complaining. Story 64. My partner has always made handmade gifts. They use their hands to create something personal and loving. Story 65. I had a former girlfriend make me a handmade felt blanket. It is simple to make a felt blanket with 2 pieces of felt and tied cut ends, but it was handmade and that made it feel special. Story 66. It's so basic, but we were on holiday with my parents-in-law, and I was exhausted from being their guide. I lay down. I'm not normally a napper. The next thing I felt was my husband popping my mouthguard in. I clenched my teeth badly. This was just so thoughtful and sweet. Story 67. So many. A few months into dating, he found me a song that he thought encapsulated all my feelings about time moving on and growing up. He doesn't even like that genre of music. When we were dating, he constantly sent me articles and pages about art because he knew I loved art even though he didn't know anything about art. When we were traveling and stayed in countries without central heating in the winter, he would warm up my side of the bed while waiting for me to finish getting ready for bed. He looks up ice cream and dessert places whenever we are in a new city because I love ice cream. He scrapes ice off my windshield for me on winter mornings before driving off to work. He leaves earlier than me. When I finish a long shift and have an hour to drive home, I send him my location on WhatsApp to let him know my estimated time of arrival. If he sees me parking far from our flat because there aren't enough spaces, he will come meet me so I don't have to walk down a dark road to get in. He will move my car closer to the flat if he notices a space nearer and my car is parked far away. I love him so much and I am so lucky he is my husband. Story 68. We were in high school when we first got together. He brought up using condoms, insisting we did because he was not worth the risk. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.